Hello and welcome to another edition of Unfulfilled. I'm your host Luke Plain, and today I'm joined by Nathan Lomax, co-founder of Quickfire Digital. I'd be very surprised if anybody listening to this didn't know who Nathan was, and that's meant to be a compliment as well, Nathan. I first met Nate back in 2017 when I think it was him and Martin and Fred and one other developer. They're now a team of 30 working on some incredible brands. I've been very lucky to see Quickfire grow. And today we discuss the last 6 years, the ups, the downs, the pinch me moments, which no doubt you've had, mate, and plenty more of that as well. So if someone's listening to this, Nathan, and they have no idea who you are, how do you walk into a room and explain who you are, mate?
First of all, say, where the fuck have you been for the last few years? No, I just, Nathan, co-founder of Quickfire Digital, Shopify-focused e-commerce agency based in the east of England. Shopify has 3 tiers or 4 tiers, I guess, and Shopify Lite, Shopify itself, Shopify Advanced, and Shopify Plus. And we're a Shopify Plus partner, one of 28 in the UK, one of 2 in the east of England, which is a huge accolade for us. Yeah, the last 5-6 years have been mental in terms of growth. We now work for some of the world's largest brands, which is really exciting. Juicy Couture, Hunter's Wellies are some of the most recent projects that we've worked on, and hugely proud of what we've achieved. Always stuff to learn and kind of get better at, but you know what, on reflection, which is very rare to get a chance to do, but if you do take the chance to look back, you're like, bloody hell, it hasn't been all bad. It's been an incredible journey, and hopefully long may it continue.
Yeah, I mean, I remember walking into the office in where was Cossey sort of way, I think it was, and
Holston.
Me and you, a bright, bushy, 22-year-old boy, and now we just
big stone lighter, and I don't know if it was, maybe it was heavier, but it was 22. I mean, I started it, like a bit of backstory. We started the agency, 3 co-founders coming together. Martin had his business doing kind of IT implementations. Fred was doing his thing, kind of website development. I was doing mine, building websites. And we actually thought, like, I love spending time with clients and sales and that kind of thing. Fred loves strategizing and talking big picture, and Martin loves the systems, process, finance, and perhaps a little bit more behind the scenes. So it kind of seemed like a match made in heaven. And when we came together and said we'd trial it for 6 months, and then it started to grow, and we took our first person on, our second person, our third person, and it just grew and grew. And yeah, like, I didn't quite appreciate just how bringing the 3 like-minded folk together, while of course we have differences and sometimes get frustrated, I think by and large we are very much on the same page. And more often when we're having a discussion, we will work out, like, at the end of it we all want the same thing, but how we get there is sometimes a bit different. So yeah, it's been incredible. And then we managed to get our chairman involved quite early. We had some great advisors around us, and suddenly we've kind of really matured in the last 12 to 18 months, just hired a head of ops. Really feels like we're coming of age now as an agency, winning some great work, delivering some great work, and then kind of couple that with what we're doing on the events and marketing side. I mean, at 45 events this year, we've built over 1,000 people in an e-commerce community. We're really kind of just putting those together to say, look, we're here to stay, and we want to be one of the leading names in Shopify. I will say that the Shopify community itself has been unbelievably supportive, right from the people working with Shopify to some of the agencies. If you look at peers that we make, or down at Velstar, or down at Swanky, or any of those guys, like, unbelievably supportive of us as an agency, despite maybe traditionally people seeing that as potential competitor. They've all welcomed us with open arms, been really supportive, offered advice when we need it, picked us up when we were down. It's a really nice, tight-knit community, and that's something I'd really like to continue harnessing and supporting and nurturing. Is how do we keep building that community for the next versions of Nathan coming through?
Yeah, that's something that I've loved since being in the e-com community, like full-time with Fulfilled, is that collaboration piece, the partnerships element, generally everyone like coming together to like truly help sort of grow businesses, right? And I know you're a big accolade of partnerships and doing things right, which we'll discuss in more detail as well. But yeah, I couldn't have hoped for a better ecosystem, if you will, to come into.
Yeah, it's an absolutely unreal ecosystem. I mean, the one, I guess, downside is fairly booze heavy. And if you're kind of into that, then amazing. It is a real party at times. It's also really high pressure. The e-commerce, once upon a time, we're building sites for people, and if a site goes down or a button doesn't work, yeah, it's frustrating, but it's not the end of the world. In e-commerce, your site's down seconds, you could be losing millions. It's pretty high intensity, and that's why I love Shopify, because of the robustness around the platform. But actually, just the community as a whole, by and large, is incredibly supportive. They all look out for each other. They run some fantastic events. There's a great community, and you know that if you had a challenge or you need some help, you could just pick up the phone and ask one of them, and more often than not, they'd help.
Yeah. What was it that made Quickfire decide on e-commerce being the sector?
I mean, I'd love to say there was something more than luck, but the reality is it was just before the pandemic, and we knew we had to niche, right? At one stage, we were doing SEO, PPC, social, and we were everything that I hate about an agency, claiming to be full service, and we just weren't. We were I don't know, 10 or 12 person team at that time, maybe 15. We weren't specialists in all of those service areas, and so we needed to just become known for something and to hang our colours to the mast. And we decided that actually we were going to plump on, one of two things: e-commerce or hospitality. I've grown up in a world of hospitality, my parents own hotels, and I understand that space very well, and I thought actually that's an area I feel comfortable in. Maybe we'll do that. We started working with a dinosaur park local to us here in Norwich, and we started working with some really nice hotels, whether it be Morstan Hall or Norfolk Mead. We started to get some really nice clients, and it was well, this is a logical path. But actually, at the same time, we won Bremont Watches, one of our first Shopify Plus builds, and we won a couple of other e-com builds. And actually, we thought, you know what, the team get most fulfilled when they're working with e-com stuff. We liked it the most. We backed Shopify as a platform. WordPress was becoming, I still think there's kind of a lot of people doing it, fairly saturated, and more often than not a race to the bottom for who could do it cheapest. So we decided that Shopify was going to be the platform we plunked for. Now, that kind of transition or niching, it doesn't happen overnight. And so over time, it was okay, the pipeline at the moment, at that time was maybe 10% Shopify, and the rest was WordPress. And then in 3 months' time, it was maybe 30% Shopify, as we were talking about it more, and then 50%, and 70%, and 90%. And now I'd say it's probably 99.5%. There's the odd piece comes in and we'll have a look at it, but more often than not, it's Shopify-focused. So we chose, for whatever reason, e-commerce. Thank goodness we did. Lockdown happens. E-commerce goes ballistic. Hospitality falls in its arse. And it was kind of just right place, right time. We then decided that actually, as part of a content series within lockdown, we'd reach out to the head of Shopify EMEA, who at the time was a lovely lady called Shimona. And she accepted and came on our podcast, and that really positioned us as points of authority that from 1 minute we are known to nobody, suddenly we're speaking to the head of Shopify EMEA, and we're somebody. So that was really cool and really helpful. When we partnered with Shopify on that, they then brought in a big Shopify brand called Gym Plus Coffee, Dermot McSweeney, really nice guy, amazing brand. So that was really cool. So suddenly we had some pretty cool traction. And as a result, we started to put out more content and start running more events. And actually, when you're talking to people and being really confident in your offering to say, all we do is Shopify. If you come across Shopify, just think of us. That was really advantageous. And I mean, even you start to see it now, more and more people are entering that space. But at the time, it wasn't massive. Not loads of people were, certainly not loads of agencies were adopting it. I see more and more agencies taking it on as part of their offering. So yeah, right place, right time, backed it, it came off. And look, you've got to have a bit of luck in this game. I strongly believe in any business, you've got to have luck. But on the flip to that, I guess the harder you work, the luckier you get, right? So you earn your luck as well. And we certainly put in the hard graft. So it was great that it paid off and propelled us to the next stage, which was really getting towards that kind of holy grail of £1 million revenue a year, which is really kind of ever since I started the agency with Fred and Martin is where we're aiming for, is to get to that baseline. Our chairman used to call it base camp, get there and then kick on, and never forget getting to that stage. And expecting some kind of fanfare and trumpets and everything, and it was just nothing apart from a empty feeling when it's like, why is it not 2 million? So see that, for anyone like chasing that, thinking that's the holy grail, my piece of advice would be don't, because it doesn't get any easier. It's important. Some people are driven by targets, and every month we have a target that goes up, and that motivates me to continue getting out of the bed in the morning, continue pushing. But it's not for everyone, right? There's a lot to be said for start agency, and it doesn't have to be growth. And I think more and more agencies, certainly I spoke to recently, that penny's starting to drop, that if you want to be in this game of growing an agency and growing at some speed, it is relentless and it is exhausting.
Well, yeah, because you are out, normally three days a week at least, like doing events. Like, I know you Quickfire hosts tons of amazing and definitely like thought leadership events as well. Like, you've done one most recently, which was around sustainability, wasn't it? You've done one around helping get investment into brands, and you are really being that the company to go to in terms of how to best position yourself, I believe.
Yeah, if you look at the weirdly, like, the agency is a replica of my personality, in terms of I'm a big believer personally in reciprocity and karma and paying it forwards. And if you look at the agency landscapes, then no surprise to see us running 45 events, primarily free of charge where you can, or covering cost where you can, to try and build a community around you. Like, just keep educating people. So if we look at that sustainability event, how can we get the very best speakers we can in an exclusive venue like the Gherkin? How can we invite merchants, and how can we help educate them on the need for their brand to look more sustainably? Before that, we were looking at internationalization. Before that, we were looking at B2B. On November 1st, we're looking at omnichannel. Like, we're taking these big topics and trying to address them head on and saying, look, we will bring the speakers, the content, all the education we can to you as a brand, Mr. or Mrs. Merchant, free of charge, to try and help. So that's been really positive for us. But as you say, that comes at a sacrifice. Just this week, today we're in Norwich, lovely. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in London. And that's, it sounds glamorous living in a hotel and all that good stuff. I can promise you it's not. It's not that glamorous. It quickly wears off, and up and down on the train, and not seeing your family. And yeah, it's okay short term. But I mean, we've just opened in Dubai, which is massively exciting and a huge step forward for the agency as we look to service those brands in the Middle East looking to get to the UK, and the UK brands looking to get out there. Huge exciting, but that's not going to grow itself, right? We've got boots on the ground and a partner out there in Katie, but actually we need to be out there ourselves, which is more travel and more sacrifice. And so I think there comes a point where, like, when is enough enough? And I think that's quite an interesting point for many agency founder, owner, leader, or even someone working in an agency. Like, at what point do you know that that's enough and you don't need to keep pushing? And we have this conversation with targets. Let's say targets, I don't know, 165 a month. And let's say you're going to do 170. Well, and a new piece of work comes in. Like, do you need to take it on? It might be a nice brand. It might be a nice opportunity. But what's the impact of that on the strain of the agency, on the strain of your people, etc., on the quality of work output? Like, when is enough enough? And you just say, you know what, that's fine. We're on target. We're doing well. The targets, people often think, are just arbitrary figures set. Like, the targets are aligned to budgets, which maps out who can and can't afford. And if you want to grow sustainably, you need to have a robust plan that says, if you deliver this amount of revenue, this is what you can afford on people. And then when the team come to you and say, we need another hire, you go back to that budget to say, okay, well, if we're doing those numbers, have we or have we not got funds to do that? Yes, we have, or no, we can't. But I think sometimes people see a target as a bit like a arbitrary figure, so the founders can drive around in nice cars and go on nice holidays or something. Sadly, it's not the case. The targets are there to make sure we can grow sustainably, and we can make sure we're hiring the right people when we need to.
Yeah. Plenty of things to think about, mate. I'm sure your head is spinning quite regularly, right, in terms of all these sort of things. And you've got a very calm face right now, Nath, but I know you've got a hell of a lot sort of thing to think about in terms of what that next point is for Quickfire, right? You've hit that million, you're now probably run rate of whatever it is now, and then you've got to think about what is that next element that you will want as a business, and what's the best way of getting there.
100%. Like, if you look at the agency now, I think this year we'll get close to 2, which is remarkable when you think last year we were hoping for 1 and we ended up doing about 1.4, which was great and pat yourselves on the back, tremendous. And then this year, okay, let's do 1.6 and let's kind of consolidate. And then suddenly you're pushing on the door of 2 and you're like, bloody hell, it's a hell of an achievement. But now we've got to think, okay, well, it's got to be sustainable growth. It's got to be the right growth for our people. It's got to be now the right growth for our clients. And also the founding team as well, right? Like we all, despite sometimes maybe coming across as robotic or machine-like, like we also have feelings and heart and exhaustion and everything else that goes in the mix. And so, yeah, when we're writing the plan as I'm doing at the moment with Shopify, the Shopify team have been very good in terms of helping to set up like a shared business plan, etc. And we're just looking at what does good look like for next year and what is that and how do we achieve that? And actually, I don't mind sharing bits of it. Like the agency needs to become more retained as opposed to heavy on projects. The agency needs to focus on 3 or 4 what I would call hyper niches. So 3 or 4 service areas or sectors more than service areas where we're like actually we are the go-to people in that sector. And that comes off the back of good quality work and case studies and the marketing around, etc. There's a couple of, like, we've already talked about the opportunity in Dubai and what does that look like, and is there further opportunities for internationalization, which is hugely exciting. Do we start to do more with our tech partners in terms of implementation partners, not just supporting each other with referrals? There's an awful lot to think about going into next year. I'm hugely excited about it. There's still some groundwork to be done. I think when I said to someone the other day, the last 3 months are make or break, I don't mean it as drastic as if it doesn't go well, it's no agency, and if it goes well, it's sale. Like, it's not quite that. But at the same time, it is seriously, these 3 months are laying the foundations for next year. If you can get the successful projects out the door, get retained revenue to where it needs to be, then we're going into next year on very strong foundations with some very happy and long-term clients. That's got to be the goal, like number one. Yeah. Then also you look at just the talent pool. You say, okay, we've managed to secure a brilliant senior developer that's joining in November. Really excited about that. We're talking to some fantastic client services people at the moment. It'd be great to get 1 or 2 more through the door. You've got another back-end developer that joined 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago now. Ideally a solutions architect, and suddenly you go into the new year, the agency looks a very different place. You got the ops guy would have been in 3 or 4 months. You got the other kind of lady that does some support and ops. She's a really versatile character and very, very capable individual indeed. She'll come over and do a bit more marketing with me, and suddenly that gives us a bit more of a full-time marketing manager. So I feel like we really are in touching distance of something quite exciting. But maybe that's just my character tonight, because every day when I wake up, I'm like, oh, today is going to be a bit more exciting. You get in, you're like, whack, maybe not. Back to the case. But you know what? Like I always say in business, if the good days outweigh the bad, then you're doing something right. And I think that the honest reality is anyone that sits there and says every day in their business is positive is not telling the truth, right? No. There are some challenging days. A lot of it is influenced by what's going on at home. I'm incredibly fortunate with my home situation with Nikki, with kids, with family, with friends. Like I have good, strong stability there, which allows me to put so much effort and energy into work. But sometimes people don't have that, right? They have disruptive home lives, and to try and run a business at the same time is incredibly challenging. I always have a huge admiration for one of my co-founders, Fred. He's got 3 young children, trying to look after them and support them and do everything they need while supporting his partner and co-founding an agency. Like it's incredibly time consuming and taxing, and we go back to that word sacrifice. It's a massive sacrifice that the weekend the children need to be at this party or do this, and actually this weekend daddy's got to work or mummy's got to work. And I think huge hats off to any founders out there that do tune into this and are going through it, because it's not easy at times. And I think a lot of people follow me on LinkedIn, and of course they see some of the lovely things that are happening and some of the good stuff, and I'm hugely grateful for that. And that's all a snowballing effect of the months and years that have gone past. But don't be under any illusions that there aren't bad days as well. In fact, a slight sad note, yesterday a friend of mine in the round table that I'm part of, he ran an agency, and he killed himself. Really, really sad. Really sad, isn't it? I was chatting to him month or so ago, and he was saying that basically we had this kind of conversation at the round table meet I was at, and they were talking about mental health and anyone had any challenges, and I just stood up and said, oh, I'm having a bit of a struggle just in terms of everything's quite overwhelming and everyone kind of puts you on a pedestal, and everyone expects you to always bring your A game, right, and to wear your happy face all the time, and sometimes very rarely, but sometimes that does get a bit much, and you're like, you know what, I'd like someone else to play the class joker today, or lead by example. I'd just like to sit in the shadows and put my headphones in and just be an ordinary person. So yeah, and this person said, look, I'm really glad you said that, because I put you on a bit of a pedestal and I always see things going so well for you, and I think, why can't that be me? And I said to him, like, it's just not the honest reality. And then sure enough, I find out this weekend that Sandy's taken his own life. So
Yeah,
it is tough and stressful, and obviously huge thoughts go out to him and his family, but it's just a really timely reminder that it is bloody hard, and no matter how happy people may look or content people may look, or how good things might be going on the outside, you never know what's going on inside, and more often than not, the only people that know is the person it's affecting. So do please, like, don't just think because someone's always invited to the parties and always kind of seen as the popular guy in the community, or girl in the community, that they're okay, because sometimes they're clearly not.
yeah, shit, man. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Really sorry, and
Appreciate
you are
it.
right.
Podcast, did you? I didn't see that in your podcast notes on there.
No, I didn't see that. No, we didn't discuss that before going on there, but
that's the importance of it, right? And that's the beauty of podcasts like this, is you get the honest take from people in the e-commerce community about what's going on, and kind of fingers on the pulse. And it'll be very easy to come here and almost treat it as a bitch and say we're amazing, we do this and we do that. And I think we're all hugely proud of what we're creating and continue to create, but it's really important people see the other side as well. I think this is the perfect opportunity to show people there are two sides to any business, and yet you have to take the rough with the smooth, and sometimes it's not all plain sailing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I've been doing it for 10 weeks, and there's definitely ups and downs in my 10 weeks. So, yeah, it's been very different, mate. I feel like, it's great fun, as you say, but there's a lot of times where it's hard work, right? It's not all glamorous, as you say.
No, absolutely.
Going back to like when you started, so go back to when we sat down in 2017, like if you could almost have that glass ball to go back in time, what do you reckon you say to like Nathan Lomax in 2017 about, what do you reckon your advice would be for a young Nathan Lomax? And Fred and Martin and anybody like going back in time, what would you reckon would be things you'd say to yourself?
Probably set up a recruitment company, because you'll make a fortune.
That's not true.
That's not true. But we have placed a lot of candidates for recruiters, mainly you, sir. But no, in all seriousness, what would I say? You know what? I wish going back. I think I personally am an impatient character, and I like to know the end of the story before I start the book. And I like to just be like, oh, okay, well, someone just showed me that in 3 years' time it's going to be okay, and then I'll keep pressing on. But sometimes I just need a polite reminder of like where the chapter ends and where the book's going to, and where long term. And I personally like to think big picture, and so I would probably say to myself that you need to be more patient. You need to double down on the ecosystem and community earlier. You need to choose your specialism and put your colors on the mast much earlier. And I think I needed to back myself more. Look, at the time I was 21, 22, I had an incredible lifestyle business. I was earning great money. I was traveling the world. I was eating amazing food. I thought I'd made it. But actually, I think the reality is that it was a very vain life. It was very, inverted commas, Instagrammable, and it wasn't the dream that I'd always had. And people say like the life you have now is the life you wished you had 10 years ago. And I really like that expression, because actually if someone could have told me at 10 years ago, 18, that I would be where I am today with the family I have, with the opportunities we have, with the agency we have, I would have absolutely bitten your hand off. For all the challenges and stress and struggles, they're in an amazingly blessed position. So yeah, I think I would just back myself more and believe in myself. And I think that kind of comes in time, because then you get a bit of confidence and you do one thing and it pans out, and then you've got more confidence to do it again. But at the time, we were always just like, and that's kind of one of the great things about having other co-founders as well, is they can have, Christ, if it was just me and we were just going off my decisions and hunches, I think we would have gone bust a long time ago. I'm always just like glass half full. Like, it's gonna be all right. Let's go for it, eh? And then I'm like, oh crumbs, I shouldn't have done that, or been so hasty there. So you know what, we balanced ourselves out well. I probably would have understood the dynamic more between three people. I think there's always a challenge, as I'm sure the other guys would testify as well. We all try to play to each other's strengths, but sometimes you can't help but tread on each other's toes. And knowing that in advance, I think I perhaps would have approached certain situations differently. You know what, it's very hard to have regrets when we find ourselves in the fortunate position we are today, but I certainly would say if I had to wrap that all up in one thing, it would have been to back ourselves earlier and to really, really double down on the community and people around us, because what we're building now, if I could have had a 3 or 4 year head start, and if I know what I know now back then, the proposition would have been very different.
Yeah. What's been your biggest like pinch me moment, do you think, in terms of the business so far?
I think I'll never forget. We won a project for a local council, and it was £25,000. And I mean, at the time, we were building websites at 5,000 or 6,000, and I kicked this biscuit tin across the room in celebration, not aware that it was full of biscuits, and the biscuits had just like gone all over the office, and everyone celebrating and having a really good laugh. And yeah, that was kind of real pinch me. And then just kind of rolling forwards, a lot of those pinch me moments have come when we've secured big brands and won big clients and delivered great work. And I think, bloody hell, as if I've just pitched for this project at 100 grand, or as if I've just won this project at 50 grand. I mean, the sweet spot for us really is like 30 to 60, 30 to 70 maybe. So yeah, winning some of those at the Fourth Glade project, we're just launching as we speak, like to have the opportunity to work for a brand like that. I think sometimes when you're in the supermarket and you're doing a weekly shop and you walk down an aisle and you're like, that's one of our brands. And I still get that. Especially, again, you're on the tube and you see a billboard, you're like, hey, there they are. I always remember Easton's coaches. Do you know those guys?
I think I've heard of that.
In Norfolk, and I always used to, when driving to see my mum and dad, I'd often see an Easton's coach on the road, and I'd be like, hey, it's one of our clients. And that still really it gives you this like warm feeling where I'm like, it's amazing. We're dealing with brands now that are not kind of local businesses necessarily, and we're starting to get a bit of traction. I mean, opening in Dubai, well, I haven't shared it too publicly yet, is a real pinch me moment to think, if I look back to a business plan that I wrote on a big whiteboard 10 or so years, and I think I've shared it with you actually, and on there it's about having X amount of revenues and having X amount of people and having X amount of, and it's like, oh, I'd love to have a satellite office in London, I'd love to have a business internationally, I'd love to do this. And you look back and I'd love to mentor 3 or 4 people, and I look back and go, I'd say I've achieved 90-95% of the board, which is amazing. I think also a couple of other pinch me moments is I've been really fortunate to, as people have seen the Quickfire journey, they've asked me to kind of mentor them and support them, and I can tell you what, there is nothing more satisfying than, in fact, just this morning, a friend of mine that I've been doing some mentoring with, he's had a couple of tough weeks, and he messaged me to say that since our conversations, things have turned around, and that is so empowering and so nice to know that you can make an impact on someone, no matter how big or small. It's funny when you kind of think of these pinch me moments, I'm like, oh, what about that? What about that? Do you remember the giveaway and what we did that Christmas? I was kind of in a bit of a difficult relationship at the time, and I watched this film. It was about this kind of princess and prince that decided to give a load of presents to an orphanage, and I don't know why, but at the time I was like, God, I'd love to be in a position to do that. And then the birth of the giveaway game, we gave 5,000 presents to the people of Norwich and raised £5,000 for good local causes. And that still fills me with immense amounts of pride. And I just wish we had the bandwidth to do something similar. Again, you look at set up a charity, Engage with Autism, to try and get autistic people into the agency ecosystem. And within 3 weeks, we're at the national awards for autism as we're being shortlisted as a finalist. And I'm like, Jesus, we're just like amazing, real kind of like, this can't be happening to me. Why me? So yeah, I'm very blessed with a lot of those moments. And perhaps nowadays we sometimes take those moments for granted. If I'm honest, you win a big client, you win a big pitch, you have a good opportunity, and you just say it becomes the norm. And actually, it's only opportunities like this when we're chatting, you look back and go, yeah, blimey, that was pretty good. That was nice. Some of the people to attract that when we built our board out and we managed to get a chairman that had spent like 10, 15 years at Omnicom, and we've got Rachel, COO, that's been in the e-com game a long time with a wealth of experience, and Rob now in ops, and Gary as FD, and you're like, as if these people are coming to work with little old Quickfire in Norwich. It's remarkable. And then you couple that with the brands we're onboarding, and couple that with the amazing team we've built and the culture we're kind of trying to create, and you're like, really, there's so much to be grateful for. But then you always peel it back to, but in the heat of the battle, you go back to your natural character traits, which for me is like, what's next? What now? Can we do more? And actually last Friday, I had a really nice conversation with one of our clients. They said, look, it's one of the most enjoyable client agency relationships we've ever had, which really made me like feel a bit fuzzy. I was like, that's amazing. And they said, the reason is that you're always asking, what's more? What more can we do? We've just given you nice feedback. Why can't you just take the nice feedback? I was like, look, I can. It's really kind, but I want to know like what would make it even better. And they were like, I really like that. And I was like, that's the DNA I want to instill in the agency. Is amazing. Pat yourselves on the back, reward yourselves. Well, what more? What more can we do? How can we make it even better? If we can do that, I think we stand in really good stead.
Absolutely, mate. And tell me about like you've already mentioned it before, I like the word you use, and the model that you sort of have is your big mantra, which is your I'll probably get this wrong now, but is it your plus equals minus, right? Yeah, the reciprocity as well. And I remember seeing you doing a talk at the Gen E event years ago, and you stood at the front talking about it, and like it's just very like it's a simple idea, right? But when it's done well and you truly believe in it, I think there's a lot of people who look up to you, Nath, in terms of that as a model is what's probably given their business their biggest like push, if that makes sense, because they've actually taken it on board and actually have believed that, okay, I might not get anything for these 2, 3, 4, 5 introductions I'm going to give people, but you know, long term, you're going to get it back in spades, right? And it's just having that confidence to do that. And I mean, I'm definitely trying to do that with Fulfilled and with this podcast and all that sort of stuff. Like I recently put a person in contact with someone I met through this ecom collab club, who shout out also to guys at Blend. And he's got an AI company he wants to grow, which is all like data analytics focused. I've been in contact with someone who can probably go in and maybe like help them in terms of a board or whatever it might be as well. So like you've definitely given a lot of people that confidence to do it as well, mate. So tell me how it came that in your mind. Like, what was it, I guess, that made you think about doing it?
Well, I think there was there's a couple of things. One is you don't ask, you don't get. And the other is the importance of having a mentor. And there's an agency local to us called Fountain Partnership. There's a great 4 people that run that, 2 kind of partners. I don't think they're married, but like boyfriend and girlfriend. Yeah. Marcus, one of the founders, told me about this model called the plus equals minus model, where you need to surround yourself with people at the same stage as you, so kind of peers, and in our case, like agencies at a similar stage. Minus, which doesn't mean worse or better, but just earlier on the journey than you, and plus, so further on than you. And Marcus, I think his agency does like 4 or 5 mil and 40, 50 people, like really nice bunch. So spend your time with people like that so you can learn from them. But then you're taking the learnings and you're passing it down to the next lot coming up. And yeah, so I really bought into that mentality, I think that's an amazing way to approach life. Like if you, in any business, if you found, let's say you're running a tech business and you're like, actually, I don't know, let's say it's in personalization, you find who's the big players in this space, who are the people in our ecosystem at the moment, and who are those that are coming through, and how can I support each person in the journey? And I think if you couple that with a relentless pursuit of giving or paying it forwards and giving without expecting anything in return, it does come back in its droves. Now, I get that it's hard, and when you've got a cost of living crisis and you've got bills to pay, etc., sometimes it can be a little bit exhausting where you're like, okay, I've just made another 5 intros to that person, and I mean, the example you gave, the lovely guys at Blend, that's a perfect example. Adam and Bob, they're super, super guys. And you just kind of we just both to each other, just like, how can I help you with this? Can I do this? Can I do this? Now, many people at the other kind of face a bit might be like, well, are they not competitors? And actually, just not at all. They're just really good, honest people that align with my values, and I really enjoy their company. And you just keep paying it forwards and helping each other, and without any expectation in return. But through the kind of bank of reciprocity, that if I need something, I could call Adam and Bob anytime, and I've got no doubt they'd say, oh, Nathan, let me help you with this, let me try and do this, do that. It's the same with many people. So if you just go about your life trying to help others, trying to put others on a pedestal, trying to push each other forward, I think it does come back in spades. Sometimes not this week, sometimes not this month, sometimes not this year, but in due course it will come back, and it will normally come back 10 times what you put in.
Yeah, completely agree. Like, it's very, very, well, it's one of our biggest mantras that we're going to be doing as well, because it builds trust as well, doesn't it? Like, and that's a huge thing, obviously, in recruitment. Like, you know, I'm happy to get into this as a debate for a few minutes as well, mate. Like, but recruitment doesn't have a great name.
Go on, then.
I know you have a general detest for most. And I'm lucky to be, I'm lucky to be in a circle people you, I guess, like in the world, within recruitment, I should say. But like, that's a big thing for me, is that trust element, because if you can't build that and you're just trying to build your business on bullshit, basically, you're never going to last. And if you're just upfront and honest with people, that's probably why we always got on. Was, I know you said to me, can I find you a developer back in the day? And I'm like, it's not really my specialist area, but I'll give it a go. Like, tell me exactly what you need and why it's important, where it sits, and all that sort of stuff. And then, you know, I know over the years we helped with, you mentioned Dan, like pre-recording, like we helped with Dan and Joe and a few others across the years.
Yeah.
But we're not always going to get it right. And I don't mind just being upfront and honest with it. But like, you tell me from your side, like, what it is you think that, you know, gives us, I guess, recruitment maybe a bit of a bad name or whatever. Like, what have you seen, mate?
Yeah, I think the thing is people are looking for quick wins and quick bucks, and I think that it's a short-term model. So it's no secret there's a massive shortage for agencies and for many businesses in the world of recruitment in terms of what they need and the candidates they need. And we're chomping at the bit for 2 or 3 roles at the moment and what we need. And a lot of recruiters will come in and see that you're maybe not desperate, but looking and actively looking and needing someone, and take advantage of that and say, okay, my fees are X percentage and there's minimal rebate period if we don't get it right, which, let's be honest, we don't always get it right. So yeah, minimal rebate period. We want a massive percentage. We're going to send you CVs. Oh, don't worry, we'll pre-vet them. You get them. You're like, okay, they've got to work in Norwich in a 5-mile radius because this particular role we want in-house. Oh, I found you this amazing person in Timbuktu that can work fully remote. No, you've not listened to what I've said. You've just, and also they want 100K. Okay, so this 40K role I've told you I'm looking for, where they must live in Norwich in a 5-mile radius. You found me someone in Timbuktu on 100K, and you're now getting arsey that I'm not coming back to you quick enough to offer them a job. Like, that's unfortunately the majority. Now, there are more and more recruiters, and certainly you guys fall into this camp in terms of trying to shake it up and do things differently. You realize the model is broken and you're creative with how you do it. Like, transparently, someone charging 15, 20%, 25%, that erodes a lot of margin for a lot of people. If you're placing an experienced person, that can wipe out a lot of margin in a business. And so it's about, okay, well, what's right for the recruiter so they're fairly paid and reciprocate for their work. Again, the amount of people that recruiters will send me a grad, and I'm like, look, I'm competent on LinkedIn. I can put in UEA graduate and I can hit search and I can message people. I don't need you to do that. I need you to find me someone that's been doing it for 6 years that comes in like this and has got these character types, etc. That's what I can't do. And that's where I expect to use the specialisms of recruitment. So yeah, I mean, look, you guys are different in terms of you've always been good to us. You've been flexible. I mean, even before this role, you've always been very honest in your approach and always gone above and beyond. And I think sometimes those little details and those moments, which perhaps you just take for granted or don't think of too much. So you'll give me a call at 7 o'clock and ask how I'm doing, or you'll see that I spoke at an event and you'll send some fire emojis on my Instagram, whatever it is. Like, you will just do little things that go towards fueling me and my appetite to work with someone. And I think it's those little touch points that people often overlook in any client relationship. Like, if you strip it back, recruiter or not, this is a kind of B2B working relationship, right? And it'd be the same with the client. Like, if I knew the client was into Man United, as I know we both follow Man United, and I would be mentioning the next time, well, did you see the game at the weekend? Lucky to get 1-0. Do you think Ten Hag's the right man? Blah, blah, blah. You would have that kind of small talk. Yeah. Or you would say, okay, I know they've got children. I know it's the daughter's first day at school. I'm just going to check in. How did she get on? Was it all okay? Oh, I see there's been a bereavement in the family and great aunt Joan has died, and really sorry to hear that. The other day we had a client call up, found out it was her birthday. Now, personally, I would have liked to have known that. And as the agency, there's the learning. I want to know that stuff before, but I found out straight away on the internet, flowers delivered to the house. That's how it should be. Because that little colourful bunch of flowers might cost you 50, 60 quid. I can promise you it's going to go a hell of a long way. Yeah. And those little touches make all the difference. You guys always just do like bread sauce delivery or whatever, like just little things that keep you front and centre and keep you front of mind. And when you need something, you go back to those guys. And like you said about kind of sometimes not getting it right, like if you don't get it right, there's a rebate period and you hold your hands up. I can dive it and say, oh, a bit like the insurance. Oh, you said you're going to do 6,000 miles. You've done 6,001. Your insurance is now void. You're like, no, okay, it didn't work out. That's life. Let's see what we can do. And in the meantime, here's a rebate of some cash, and we'll go and find another candidate free of charge. And blimey, you can't argue with that. That's my story about recruiters, mate. Very animated.
Brother sort of poked the bear a little bit there and only got a little bit of it.
It's like a recruiter committee where I could just be like the advisory panel to be like, can you just all tidy up your act and be good people? Yeah.
And that's what I mean. Right, I will put this on my LinkedIn very soon, but I think my thing is gives a shit. Like, you talk about like the plus equals minus model and all that sort of stuff, and I completely agree. But in our game, if you can generally say you give a shit about what you do for both your clients and your candidates, and it's not just about that quick win, you're going to be around for a lot longer than the others who are just chasing that next bit of like cash in their bank and all that stuff. Because it's, as you mentioned, probably right at the top of this podcast, it's a race to the bottom in another B2B service. It's exactly the same idea as that.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It comes back to authenticity, and people can sniff it a mile off as well. If it's not your natural value as a person, and you're not naturally the kind of giving person that's like, oh, actually, I want to help, I want to see others succeed. It's almost worse when people do it and you're like, well, this is ridiculously artificial. Of course, this isn't right. Like, if that is genuinely your belief and you live and die by that mantra, I promise you it will come back in its spades. But you have to shift the whole mindset and way of operating to that. Otherwise, it just becomes a really sleazy sales tactic, and it's pretty grim when you see it. You're like, that's not your belief at all. Don't bullshit. And then it's work, right? It's all about building long-term partnerships. And if you're not in it for the long term, then don't be in it at all.
Yeah. But yeah, completely agree. And like, we would be mates now outside of work, would we, if we didn't have the same sort of beliefs around loads of stuff? And just so happens that I'm a recruiter. It's just
right. And suddenly, like, the relationship goes a step further, and you become friends outside of work, and you invite each other around for Sunday lunch, and the kind of, you meet each other's families, and that's the kind of relationships you want with these people, where it is a bit more, less surface level and more deeper. And you know that if I had a bad day, there's a couple of people I'd call. I could probably count them on one hand, but I'd genuinely say you're one of them, and I'd say that's a testament to the kind of relationship you've built with me, and also the way you've behaved as a recruiter, but also a friend, that I'm like, you know what, I've got a difficult time or a difficult challenge. Who do I trust that's going to listen, that's going to offer good, impartial advice? That would be you.
very kind of you, mate. I feel like I should end on that note.
Yeah, just take that soundbite and bin the rest. That'll do.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a 45 minutes and go in the bin. But no, I know Belly really, I don't think I really scratched the surface in terms of stuff I want to ask you. And so, yeah, maybe I need to get you on again at some point, mate. But like, just thank you for everything. Like, I mean, that's just across the board over the years, and for the support and all that sort of stuff. And I know there's a lot of people in this community who say the same thing about you, mate. Like, it's genuine, the stuff that you guys do as well. So thank you, man.
Oh, I've got goosebumps. Very kind. Thank you. I've really enjoyed it, mate. Thank you, and good on you for so many people talk about doing a podcast and getting themselves out there, and they don't do it, right? And part of the challenge in this world in particular is pulling the trigger. And if you're going to say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. So it's been a real pleasure to be on the show. I hope people listening have found it enjoyable. Hopefully they got through the first 5 seconds where I did my poor intro and kind of joked. I hope people realised that was a joke and that wasn't me. But no, it's a genuine pleasure, mate, and I wish you and the Fulfilled team all the best. I look forward to placing hopefully many candidates with you guys very soon.
Legend. Thank you very much, mate.
Okay, see you soon.
Bye, mate.